Good morning to all of you. So thank you very much, and thank you, Bala, for this opportunity. Before I start this talk, I would like to disclose that it is not for the people in the front two rows, because they are already very successful. I mean, they have known how to overcome failures and setbacks in profession. So it is for the younger audience in this group, and it is not about managing a particular complication like infection or dural puncture or something like that. And it is not about medical legal issues. It is generally the feeling of how you feel when something unexpected and some failure occurs in your day-to-day profession. Failure means different things to different people, and it is very difficult to define. But all of us recognize it when it happens. It is very different. For a person who is aiming for the Olympic gold, even getting a bronze is a big failure. It's a disappointment. But for a student who is aiming for 65 and unexpected 75 marks is a big bonanza. I mean, so it is different from different people. But when something major strikes unexpectedly, we know that there has been a big setback. What is most important is that failures occurs to everyone, irrespective of the seniority or irrespective of their experience. And years of hard work and tons of preparation cannot prevent a failure, something unexpected. And I would like to tell this story which happened to us a couple of years ago. Now, this was a girl from Pune, a chartered accountant, 26 years of age. And I have been looking after her from 3 years. She has multiple complex spinal deformities and syndromes. So she started the first surgery at 3 years of age when she had a detethering and then had growth rods, and then we did a spinal osteotomy and everything was good, and she became a chartered accountant. And at 26 years, she fell in love and then decided to get married. And 6 months before the wedding, she came to us and said she wanted a simple correction of her rib hump, which was not very big. So we tried to dissuade her from it, but she was particularly very particular that she should have it done. And she said, "Uncle, you have to do this for me." When you're treating somebody from 3 years, they start calling you not as doctor, but as uncle. And so we all fell into the trap, and then we did the surgery. Nothing untoward happened. But on the third day, while in the rounds, we felt that she was not as bubbly and boisterous as she usually is. And the next day morning, she became a little drowsy. And then a neurologist was called, and lumbar puncture proved that she has got encephalitis. Nothing to do with the surgery. But still, she went on a rapid down, and she died after 5 days. So, this is something that is just out of the box, not under your control. Not because of you, but still a very bubbly youth person gets something totally unexpected and dies. So her mother, when she died, I came and saw her and she said, "Doctor, you could have killed her when she was 3 years old. I needn't have brought her up till 26 years and then let her die. She could have just died in the first surgery." But it was just out of exasperation, and then she went back and then wrote a long letter of thanks for having looked after her for such a long time, and she also apologized for what she said. But these things happen to everybody. It happens at unexpected time, and then you realize if you do enough of work, you will always face some failure. In fact, one of the things that actually makes us feel good is successful people experience more failures than others, because there is a certain ratio and statistics which you cannot expect. So all the people whom we quote as big successes, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Rowling, you can take it in the field of art, science, literature, expedition. Everybody whom we think of great success actually has gone through a passage of great failures. In fact, I think if we can give a nickname of king of failures, we can give it to Abraham Lincoln. I mean, there is nothing that he had, no setback that he has not faced. But he overcame all these things and then became one of the most successful presidents, and he was able to he brought about slavery, which no other previous president could actually do it. So we have to first understand, as young people, you have to know that if you have a setback, you are not alone. Probably you should think, I am on the way to success. But there is one little problem with medical failures, because medical failures are not just between the person who failed. But the patient fails and there is something very setback. The doctor also suffers quite a lot. And then there are the families who are associated with them who also suffer quite a lot. So medical disasters cause multiple vision. Now this is one of the publications in 24 where they have said that the doctor also is a second victim to any complication or a failure. And the same author has also written in a different publication, the failed doctor, he also needs support and encouragement. But then as I was reading to the article, I thought, medical failures are not just affecting one person. I think the first victim is, of course, the patient. The second big victim is all of us. I have put surgeon because I am a surgeon, but it's the anesthetist, it's the team, everybody. Because we also undergo a lot of guilt, some anxiety, some depression, some question of something whether we could have avoided. The third victim becomes the whole family. The fourth victim becomes the institution. And finally, I think the fifth, it should be fifth here, is your whole specialty. You do a complicated spine surgery from one village, patient dies, and then you can be 100% sure that many people from around the 5 villages are never going to have spine surgery for the next 10 years. So if you do this, you are also hurting your specialty, you are hurting your institution, everything. So avoiding failures is a must. It's a necessity, because as you grow and your volumes increase, failures may become the most important limiting factor for your growth. This is something which we have to really understand. Now let's take, in the medical field, they always say 1 to 2% complication rate or a failure rate is acceptable. But that's okay when your volumes are low. But as you are growing and the institution's volumes are becoming higher, even the small percentage may become very disastrous. Now let's take, just taking Ganga Hospital for example. Now, last year we did 32,000 major surgeries, and if you take an accepted form of 2% failure rate, that means you are talking about 640 big failures. And this is disaster, which means that every day we are going to have 2 big complications which no institution, no unit, no specialist can even withstand. So you have to be sure that as you grow, not only your success must come up, but your failure rates must be going very phenomenally, drastically low, so that it will not pull you down into a pitfall. So a few tips from 30 years of gray hair and experience. You are young, so you attend many conferences, you attend many workshops, you come to GARC, you see many things, hear of new things, you do some workshops, and then you are rearing to go on the next patient when you go back. But you must ensure your competency in that procedure and the competency of your whole team before you embark on new procedures. Knowledge is different from capability. Knowledge is what you can get from Google, from View Media, from anything, Facebook. But capability is something that comes only from training. And if you are wanting to rearing to go through a new procedure, then you must make sure that you spend some time with somebody on the wards, on the operating theatre, in the post-operative wardroom, get your competency and go. Because surgical training or medical training comes from mentorship and hard work and not from Google. And professional excellence we have to also understand, because at the end of our intervention is not just a patient. I mean, he is a husband, mother, wife, son or father to someone else. And you have to be extremely careful that we are competent. We are probably the best person. I always used to think that if I am the patient, will I get operated for this particular procedure from myself? So if you are not competent and you think that you won't get it done, you would rather go to, then you need more training over that. In this, I think we should keep in mind the military motto, which says, sweat a lot in preparation so that you will bleed less in war. So I think we should sweat a lot in preparation in our new procedures, in all the major things that we do, so that there will be less bleeding in the operating theatre for the patient. And Bob Backlund, a very renowned plastic surgeon, he was a visiting professor to the plastic surgery department. He actually said, before you start any procedure, maybe a complex case, maybe a patient for anesthesia with a lot of comorbidities, you must have done the procedure a few times in your mind. Think of all the possibilities, everything that can go wrong, and you should keep every possibility in your mind so that the thinking doesn't start at the time of a complication, but you're already well aware of what you must do. And for this, so it always comes to this thing called the big effort. Nothing big comes out of anybody without a big effort. We all see people with great successes and we think that, oh, they are doing this so effortlessly. But we should know that they have reached that status with a lot of effort. The biggest tennis player of all times, Roger Federer, gave a graduation passing out address in the University of Dartmouth, and he gave 3 important lessons to the graduating people. The first one is this.
Let's call them tennis lessons. I hope they will be useful in the world beyond Dartmouth. So here's the first. Effortless is a myth. I mean it. I say that as someone who has heard that word a lot. Effortless. People would say my play was effortless. Most of the time they meant it as a compliment. But it used to frustrate me when they would say he barely broke a sweat. I didn't get where I got on pure talent alone. I got there by trying to outwork my opponents. I believed in myself, but belief in yourself has to be earned. Yes, talent matters. I'm not going to stand here and tell you it doesn't. But talent has a broad definition. Most of the time, it's not about having a gift. It's about having grit.
Yeah. You know, this is something very important. You may have the best talent, you may have got the gold medal, you may be the university first, but it doesn't translate anything to when you're inside the operating theatre and you're controlling a patient. All that is what amount of hard work you have put in getting the capability to manage the case and what grit you have over here. In the young person's mind, the effort and hard work in the times of social media, both of these are getting a lot of bad mouthing in the term. People are actually looking down upon hard work and they think that is opposite to enjoyment of life. I think this is because people have not understood the difference between hard work and stress. And I can say understanding this difference is very, very critical as you grow up in your profession. Hard work is important for progress. It gives us achievements. It gives us mental satisfaction. It gives us success in life. It gives us recognition. And it gives us everything that what we hoped for later in our life, what we dreamt when we were younger in life. Hard work has not killed anybody. I can assure you that. But stress is the opposite of all this. And stress has killed a lot of people. And the difference is that when you work and achieve, it is hard work, but when you have work and you do a poor performance, it is a stress. When people say, I got stressed today at work, it doesn't mean that he worked hard. It does mean that something went wrong in his work and there was some poor performance at some point of time. Now, just another example to show here. Just a simple thing of throwing a... You can see that you can do it so beautifully well, and that's a art. You can do like this also, isn't it? And naturally you are stressed. I mean, this is something that you are very angry, and imagine if you are doing this in the operating theatre. Some tube doesn't go, your line doesn't work, something happens, or we as a surgeon do something funny like this. Of course, that day will be full of stress. The third important thing is, as you start your profession, don't be impatient for success. Don't look at Bala, don't look at all the big dons of the profession in the first 3 rows and just think, I should be them next day. You should be like them, or even you should surpass them. There is no harm. If you think I should be 10 times better than Bala, it is a very justifiable ambition, but you should not aim for it tomorrow. So, if you are impatient, you will tend to do some foolish things and then you embrace failure. When we all say that people achieved success effortlessly, then you just look at what Sachin. So people asked him, how do you do an effortless six? And he said, it took me years of effort to get that effortless six. When Rahman was asked how long it takes to get a good tune, he said, always twice the time you imagine, because I have to work day and night every time. And when Narayana Murthy was asked how the Infosys became an overnight success, he said it took us 25 years to be called as overnight success. So, we are looking at people who have achieved. At the time, you as young people should not also forget what brought them over there. So look at the success, but you should go to these people and ask the story behind that success. And you will be inspired. There is a lot of learning lessons from everybody who has been successful, and it will help you to read. So, you all, more than what we, are going to face a single problem, which is called intense competition. Yesterday in the budget, our finance minister has said that she is going to increase 75,000 medical seats across the country. You just imagine, that means in 10 years there will be 750,000 more doctors. That's a huge number. You don't know what's going to be the sort of competition. There will be one big specialist for every road in another 10 years' time. Luckily, we would have finished our profession, but you are going to get the burning of competition over there. In that, one of the things that will happen is the pressure to be seen as different and better than your peers. In that, you will have to be careful that you are different and better than your peers, not to be seen as better, but you really have to be better and don't enter the rat race for instant gratification or quick success. Narayana Murthy again said, if the culture encourages rat race, you should not be surprised if everybody turns into a rat. So, this is very important. So, you still need to look at the highest ethics and value of them. The fifth point to achieve success and to prevent failure is not to celebrate success too early. Do not fall for instant gratification. We see in the social media, people write, today I did something small. I ran 2 kilometers. Immediately there are 200 thumbs up, likes and other things. I did a small surgery and then there are 200 things. You are starting to get into the addiction and habit of having an approval and gratification for every single small thing that you are doing. And then you are also going to get satisfied with that. If your aim is to climb up to the summit, I think the celebration and the rest must be when you climb the summit. If you are going to have a celebration at every small level, overnight parties, disruption, and then you can be 100% sure that you will settle down somewhere here, there is no mental grit to go up over here. And here comes the important story of Watson and Crick. Now, I was a visiting professor to Cambridge last year, and just in front of the King's College, there is the laboratory where Watson and Crick work. It's a small building. It was so inspiring. It's not big. It's very small. And in that laboratory, there has been 18 Nobel laureates so far. 18 Nobel laureates. And then there were also a lot of stories about Watson and Crick. And then one of the things that I read was Watson had published only 14 papers when he got Nobel Prize. But each one of them was a big paper. It was not a case report or something. Each one was very... And after they got the Nobel Prize, after 10 years, one of them asked, what have you done after 10 years? And Watson said, sadly, before I got the Nobel Prize, I was not very famous. So nobody called me for meetings, or nobody called me for inaugurating, or nobody called me for talking, and I was doing a lot of work. Unfortunately, after Nobel Prize, I have no time for work because I have become famous. So we all must be sure that your successes in life should not be also an impediment for going further. You should know when you should stop your celebration over here. I actually learnt a lot of things from Mr. Krishnan. All of you know in Coimbatore there is Krishna Sweets. So once they won a big Limca award, and on the same week he also had a doctorate from Avanashlingam University for business. So I asked him, after 3 days I met him and I asked him, so when is the celebration? He said, for what? So I said, what, Limca records and your doctorate? He said, but that was 3 days ago. I said, yeah, but where is the treat? He said, no, that is over. He said, if you have to progress, you have to know, if you win something or if you have a success, your celebration ends that day. The next day must be a normal working day. This too much of celebration also is something that we not do. The last thing is, before you go, there is a lot of things in the media to say you should slow down, you should work little, you should not stress yourself, you should not do these things. You should not have a work-life balance struggle. Each of you should set what is your goal and appropriately set what is the goal for your family, what is the goal for your profession, and this varies from person to person. If you want to be a high performance individual, then of course you must be tilted towards work. But if you want to be a high enjoyment person, there's nothing wrong in it. You can be tilted towards life. But being a high enjoyment person, you should not feel bad or badmouth a person who is working very hard. And if you are a high performance person, you should not look down upon people who are choosing the other form. So this is something highly individual and we should set your own form. Form good and safe procedures and protocols. If you have procedures that are doing very well in your hands and have been safe for your patients, think twice or think many times before you move to a more costly, more instrumental. This is more for surgeons because we are all moving towards more costly, more instrumental, more challenging and unproved procedures so far. Your favorite procedure may not be the best one for the patient, and if you are moving on to new procedures, always ask, is it for the benefit of the patient or is it going to satisfy my ego? So many of these procedures, these two slides are for surgeons, but I need to tell you about surgeons because you are also dealing with them from day to time. It's well proved that approximately 30% of surgeries done in all specialties are unnecessary. Do you think it is right or wrong? All of us agree, yeah? But how many times you have told your surgeon, why are you doing an unnecessary surgery? It's difficult, isn't it? So this is something, and I'll tell you this story. In 1998, there was a big spine conference, and Alf Neckamsen is called as the conscience of spine surgeons. So at that time, there was a big fashion for doing 360 degrees fusion for this spondylolysis. So you operate from the back, put the screws, fuse behind, and then open up from the front, and again fuse it, put a big cage from the front. So he put up the slide and said, this is a 40-year-old person who has occasional back pain, he is not able to play golf occasionally, and how many of you would operate and all. So in the audience response system, 94% of people said that they would operate on him. And after some discussion, he said, this is your wife's X-ray. So how many of you would operate? The number of people who said they would operate fell down to 32%. So it just shows how much we love our wives than this. But the story doesn't end there. He then said, this is your X-ray. How many of you would get it operated tomorrow? It fell down to 3%. So we love our wives more than the patients, but definitely we all love ourselves more than our wives. So, these things and complications unfortunately happen when we do our unnecessary surgeries. When there is something going wrong in front of your eyes, don't procrastinate. And I always tell this, many times we have felt this. You do your rounds at night, 9 o'clock, you feel that the patient has some tense abdomen, little bit not all right, patient's face doesn't look. Don't say, okay, if it is the same, we will do a scan tomorrow morning. Anything can happen between then and tomorrow morning. The time if something is going wrong for you to get it is now. Don't procrastinate. Because when you procrastinate, it becomes an avoidable complication. And that makes you feel really bad. You have to make all avoidable complications possible. And build a solid team. Avoid weak links in your chain. If you want to walk fast, walk alone. but if you want to walk long and far, walk together. So look at every member of your team as you grow up. As you build a team, you must build fortresses against you. In the end, whatever you do, failure may strike. And then a few tips again. This is very important. Don't personalize your failures. This is very important. That the treatment that you did or the procedure you did became a failure does not mean that you as an individual or a professional is a failure. I mean, this is a big difference between both. Don't cling to our failures and keep the memory of the failure short. Progress, move on to doing things and this. In the Air Force, whenever there is an air crash, it is a custom that all the pilots in the squadron will go on a sortie immediately within 24 hours because they just don't want to get the panic or the diffidence into their minds. So you should move on from any of these failures because no one cares about your failure as much as you do. We have to understand that because all the people around us have enough of their own problems and failures of their own that they are not going to think of your failures for too long. It is just that we cling on to our failures and keep thinking what everybody will think or what happens and all that. And we are not alone. This is something very important. When you have a failure, however bad it is, however disastrous it is, you have to know that we are not alone. People have done bigger problems in life. So learn from it and move on. See, Michael Jordan is called one of the greatest basketball players ever. And he told when he retired, I have missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. And I have lost almost 300 games. The mistakes that he did actually lost his team 300 games. On 26 occasions, I have been entrusted to take the game-winning shot, and I missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life, but this is the most important thing. He said, I learned from them, and that is why I became a success. So failing is common to everybody. But how you get up and move on becomes the most important thing. For that, one of the most important thing that helps you is with whom you are moving in life. And as young people, I will tell you this again and again. This is a very important statement. It is so important with whom you are at your times of success and times of failure. It's critical. Because if you are with the wrong people when you are successful, they will blow you out of proportions. There will be too much weight on your head and you will crumble down at the next moment. And if you are wrong with the wrong people when you are with failure, they will not support you. They will still make you feel better and you will go down the dumps that you'll never make. Make sure that you do not forget your true friends and family in times of success. They are your lifeboat in times of your trouble. This is very, very critical. With Bala's permission, I'll take one more minute for telling a story because the story came into my mind just now as I was talking. So, many years before, I was in Hyderabad airport and thanks to SpiceJet, the flight from Hyderabad to Coimbatore was 2 hours late. And very fortunately for me, Pujya Sri Dayanandal Saraswati Swamigal was also waiting for that flight. And as I met him and I sat next to him on the TV, there was the news that Satyam Raju has been arrested that evening. So I asked, 14 days before he shared the podium with Bill Clinton when he came to India. And so I asked Swamiji, what is this? 10 days before he was sharing the stage with Bill Clinton and today has been arrested. Is this fate? No, he said only thing that Raju did was that he forgot his true family and true friends as he went up. Because as he was doing some mistakes, there was nobody who really loved him as a person, who had affection for him, who could tell him, look, you're going on the wrong path. This is a mistake. Don't do it. He was only surrounded by lots of new friends and new acquaintances, and he said, so he had lost his lifeboat in life. So this is also very important. All of you will be very successful. You will all become very big people, famous people, but you should not forget your true friends of childhood and family when you are very successful, because they are the people who will succeed you. You are the sum average of the 5 people with whom you spend your time with. And this is, work can wait for some time, but your spirit, friends, family and health, they are like glass balls. And you should not lose them, and make sure that you don't lose over them. And lastly, convert your frustration and fear and frustration into positive action. This is very important. If you fail, after your initial moments of frustration, you must prod over it for some time, learn from it, and then move it into a higher goal. If you lost in your district match, you should feel frustrated, and then you should convert it into an energy of thinking, how will I become not just the district champion again, but you should convert it into thinking, how will I become the national champion now? This is what has happened with big problem. When Gandhiji was thrown out of the train in South Africa, he didn't think how to get into the train again. He had a greater goal. He converted that frustration and anger into, okay, you threw me out of the train, I will throw you out of our country. And that particular moment actually changed not his life, as it is said here. The incident changed the course of his life. I think that incident changed the course of the whole India and also UK, isn't it? And this is very important, we see often and often. Usain Bolt was the fastest man and he was disqualified by a false start. He didn't come back to think, okay, I'll run again. But when he went out, he said, I will come back to create records again. And that is what he did. And from that time, whenever he started, just before running, he always sat on the track and did this, which means I am aiming for the sky hereafter. And that is what actually made, for the first time in the 100 meters dash in the Olympics, there was no need for a photo finish. It was such a huge lead that even allowed Usain Bolt to slow in the last 1.5 seconds of his run. So, this is most important. So avoid distractions in life. We are all filled with distractions, and you have to get over the true meaning of we only live once, so let's enjoy life. That's not actually true. When he says we only live once, Snoopy is considered to be the greatest philosopher. All his cartoons is so good. He says, wrong, we only die once. We live every day. Which means we have to make every day of our life purposeful and not distracted and in enjoyment. So for all the young people, I can boldly say that what is going to be between you and great success is a smartphone which makes all of us stupid. Isn't it? The phone is smart, but makes us stupid. And Neeraj Chopra, when he went for his training abroad, he found that it was so distractive that for the 1 year he trained in Denmark, Netherlands, he switched off his phone and just switched his phone only for 10 minutes in the morning to talk to his mother. And then he kept it off over there. And of course, he was new. Lastly, falling is common to everyone, but failing should not be an option. This is very important. And let me close with...
whatever game you play in life, sometimes you're going to lose a point, a match, a season, a job. It's a roller coaster with many ups and downs. The truth is, whatever game, a job, it's a roller coaster with many ups and downs. The best in the world are not the best because they win every point. It's because they know they'll lose again and again and have learned how to deal with it.
Yeah. This is something very important. This is coming from the person who won the greatest number of Grand Slams and everything. When things do not work out well, lastly, take a break and find some humor. That's a medicine for life. All of you would know Goran Ivanisevic. He is the only person who entered into the Wimbledon as a wild card and just went on to win the whole championship. He had the record for most aces in Wimbledon till Federer broke it and was inducted into the Tennis Hall of Fame in 2020. Let us see what he did when he was going down in a very important match.
15 love.
So he was having a very bad space and he was losing very badly.
40 love.
And this is not in a small match, it is in the ATP tennis high qualifying match. So now look how the entire team took up this disastrous situation. So Goran, Pat, who was playing against him, the umpire, the crowd, the girl, this is something, it became an unforgettable moment. So this is my last slide. I would like to tell of our poet Bharati. He was going through a disastrous period of his life when he didn't have money even to eat his daily food. He had many sickness of his whole family. And then he actually wrote a poem which challenged God. So he wrote to God, he said, like some funny creations of men you have made, who aim and spend their days to earn just a living and daily food. Waste time in small-time gossips, who lose their confidence and grit when failures occur, and just get grey and old without achievements, by throwing challenges and making me fall. Don't you even think that you can keep me stay fallen? This he wrote to God in this thing for this thing. So it just shows the spirit that you have, not to challenge the situation, but is actually challenging God who is putting into this situation. So this is sure that all of us will have failures, but we will surely become big if we have this grit and courage in our mind.